Whew. Holy shit, Vince. This is wild. And I'm taking words from Scoot because that everything about this is fucking wild. Um we're gonna roll the intro because we just got to get into it. So without further ado, let's roll the mother effing intro.
Free fall as I die through the kaleidoscope in my mind. No rope up to climb. Gotta remind myself that I'm fine. Mama, I don't really wanna.
All right, so for those of you who don't know, there's been a lot of stuff as far as the situation with Vince and the alleged uh sexual encounter that he had with a former employee. Um I want to do this video under the guise of everything being under speculation and assumption. I mean, yes, there is, text message proof and evidence via court documents and so on and so forth, but I do not want to personally state that as a definitive that this stuff is what has happened, because then I have to come back and make a video being like, oh yeah, we were wrong, blah blah blah, whatever. No, I just want to go off what's being reported presently. And as of yesterday, which would be the 25th of January, my mom's birthday, um, the speculation allegations have ramped up considerably. And this video in itself is really just to give the lot of you who don't know, or those of you who happen to know, more information as far as what has transpired. So what I did is I went out and I looked for what could be probably the most credible source to read this from, and it has been the New York Times. Um, so we're going to read this together so that way all of you have an understanding. Now, I will tell you, there are text messages. We will not get into those text messages on this video. I say this video because I can't have the same level of tone on this video that I would have reading those messages, because I have read those messages, well, most of them. And I think we all need to have a nice reprieve after the seriousness of these allegations here. So when that video comes out, then we can laugh. Here we can laugh about this shit too, to an extent, but there's a lot of seriousness as far as the allegations go, and what's being reported that has happened to the poor woman, victim in this case, Janel Grant. So without further ado, um so it says here, a former employee of World Wrestling Entertainment sued Vince McMahon, the longtime chairman and chief executive of WWE, in federal court on Thursday, accusing him of physical and emotional abuse, sexual assault, and trafficking. That's some serious shit. And wow, Vince, if that's the case. The lawsuit filed in U.S. District Court in Connecticut alleges that Mr. McMahon, who was subject to an internal investigation in 2022 over allegations of misconduct, sexual exploited, and trafficked the former employee Janel Grant from 2019 to 2020. Another WWE executive, John Laurinaitis, and the company itself are also named as defendants. Mr. McMahon also pressured Ms. Grant to sign a non-disclosure agreement, the suit says, in which he agreed to pay her $3 million in exchange for not discussing their relationship, which is, weird. Well, I can't say it's weird, more so because of the fact that, he's a billionaire, but the fact that widely known family man. And I get that, keeping it discreet and non-disclosed is fine, but it's like, why get somebody in the company? Like, why keep it so close to home, especially when you have family who is employed in the company, namely also your wife, who, by the way, they're still married to this day. Legally, I don't know if they've separated, but legally they still married. But continuing on, the lawsuit seeks to void the non-disclosure agreement. It also seeks unspecified amounts in punitive damages and legal fees. And Callis, no relation to Don Callis, I'm sure, a lawyer for Miss Grant, declined to comment on the suit on Thursday. So, if, which means that there's more that's gone on, and judging by the text messages or the supposed text messages that have been released, I'm almost definitively sure, without a shadow of a doubt, that there is way, way more to go on. Miss Grant's complaint, which was previously reported by the Wall Street Journal, not going into that. That's more. It's link clickbait. I mean, granted, I'm pretty sure it's more information on this, but we're not going to go through boatloads of sites to get all the information like that. Includes graphic descriptions of sex acts, threats, and intimidation that says she faced over several years as Mr. McMahon, 78, gained control over her professional and personal lives and wielded that power to abuse her psychologically and sexually. Pause right there. Grant met Mr. McMahon in 2019. The complaint says her parents had recently died and she was unemployed. Mutual friend suggests that she contact Mr. McMahon about a possible job at WWE when the two met. When the two met, Mr. McMahon greeted her wearing only his underwear, according to the complaint. Hold up. All right, so that shit in itself is weird. And I'll say thanks, garbage truck. I'll say this. People who can't fathom having a large amount of money, like Vince McMahon, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, so on and so forth, these billionaires, people like myself, normal people of the world like you and I, a good majority of us can't fathom how much money or comprehend having that much amount, that much money in our existence. So it's hard to wrap our brains around how certain people perceive the way that people operate in their daily lives. So let's take that into account as we read this aspect, because I know most people reading this on one side can say, oh wow, that's crazy, how could he be so disgusting to do such a thing? And then there's other people who will look at it like, oh, of course that could never happen, like I don't believe that, that's too bizarre to even think about. If you consider the fact of how people with this amount of money live their lives, and they live on a certain level that we cannot comprehend, it's not far-fetched to assume that this whole thing, as far as him acting this way, especially to somebody who is going to gain a potential job, is a possibility. So, because when I first read it, the first thing I thought about was, wow, that's too crazy. But then it's like, wait, hold on, think about it. People with power, people with limitless power, and people with the same type of power that Vince McMahon has, in the way that we've even reported how he has gone about ripping up scripts, and the way that he's operated WWE in his tenure, where we even said, yo, you got to step back, like you're doing too much, like sit back. Clearly, Vince has an issue with power where he just needs to have it. So he operates on a spectrum all his own. So this to him is normal, especially if there's something, if in fact the allegations and everything are accurate and these are all facts, then it's not far-fetched to believe that all of this easily happened, because this is the way that he operates. But I'll continue on. After promising her a position with power and high salary within WWE, Mr. McMahon eventually offered Miss Grant an entry-level position on the company's legal staff in June of 2019 in exchange for sex, according to the lawsuit. I'll continue on before I give my thoughts on that. Miss Grant felt trapped in an impossible situation. The complaint says submitting to McMahon's sexual demands or facing ruin. Once she was working at WWE headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut, the abuse intensified. The lawsuit says Mr. McMahon took nude photos of her and filmed them having sex. The complaint says he showed the photos and videos to other employees and later used them to intimidate her into silence, according to the complaint. Okay, so this is where the situation goes into a level of seriousness that in no way, shape, or form is a laughing matter, because thinking about the fact of her being in a down and out position where she's just lost her parents, she's unemployed and she's looking for help. And the help that she seeks is people that she trusts that tells her, hey, go here to get you out of this situation. And she goes into this situation where she's offered something that's going to get her out of one issue, which is the unemployment. And if she's being promised a high salary, it's hard to turn that down when you are down and out, especially if you're in a position where you have just lost both your parents. This is coming from somebody who's lost one. I lost my father um, back in 2024, back in 2004. So understanding the hurt and the hardship it is to go through, the emotional toll that it takes on you just for losing both of your parents and then being in this position. Yeah, it's hard to think that, you know it's hard for you to want to go through anything else that could put you in a slump. So when you sense a level of reprieve that you can get from something and you can actually come out on top, it's hard to to decline something like that, you know so for this being the position and her feeling like, oh, I feel trapped, I can't get anywhere, it's very valid. I believe, if they like, again, I believe this aspect of it because it's something that is very true. It's something, it's a genuine feel that you would have in within this situation. So it's not, again, not far-fetched to believe somebody with that level of power, you know imposing their imposing their level of power onto somebody who feels insignificant in that certain moment. This is a perfect example of predator and prey. It's like a full grown, in their prime specimen of a lion taking on a wounded gazelle. It's easy pickings at this point. So, and when you have predators like that, they sniff that shit out like blood in the water for sharks. Like, this was Christmas for Vince, again, if these allegations are true. But the fact that this whole thing here, just in this little part here, is crazy enough because of the fact that it speaks to the person that this is assuming that Mr. McMahon is. And if this is the case, wow, Vince, wow. Like, I can understand, billionaire, that mind warp and everything, but to take it to this extent and to be this predatorial on, to be this predatory on, well, you're so an early subordinate at that. Like, this is crazy, man. And you have a daughter and granddaughters. Whew. Continuing on. The relationship grew increasingly violent and coercive. According to the lawsuit, Mr. McMahon pressured Miss Grant into having sex with other people, the complaint says, including the other executive named as a defendant, Mr. Laurinaitis, which, that's another one right there, who, in one episode described in the suit, Miss Grant says that Mr. McMahon and Mr. Laurinaitis locked her in an office and took turns graping her. I know it says it right here, but I'm trying to be nice for YouTube, so we're not finna say it. In 2022, Mr. McMahon told Miss Grant that his wife had learned of their relationship and that Miss Grant's time at WWE was at an end, the lawsuit says, and he began to pressure Miss Grant to sign a non-disclosure agreement to guarantee her silence. In exchange, Mr. McMahon promised her $3 million. The complaint says he paid the first million, but failed to make further payments, according to the suit, which keeping that carrot on the string. It's like, so you, and this is me just making my assumptions. It's like, so you you get in hot water with Linda because she finds out about it, which again, still crazy. She finds out about it. You promise that you're going to pay her the 3 million. Excuse me. Have her sign an NDA, pay her the first million, and then to keep her on the string, you keep that other million. So that way she keeps coming to you to be like, hey, where's this money? Because there's nothing legal about it. You have her sign the NDA. It's a promise to pay, but nobody else is involved. That's diabolical, man. So but the sexual coercion continued into March of 2022, 2 months after McMahon had signed the NDA, according to the complaint, which mentions Mr. McMahon's business negotiations with the person described in complaint as a WWE superstar to persuade the wrestler to sign a new contract with WWE. Mr. McMahon offered sex with Miss Grant as part of the deal, according to a screenshot of text in the screenshot of a text message included in the lawsuit. I mean, right there is borderline sex trafficking at that point, because my thing is, who the fuck were you trying to sign at 2022? March of 2022. We'll have to go back and check that. Well, I'll do it in post edit, obviously. Most people say it's Mr. Lesnar, but again, assumption, speculation. We don't know yet for sure. Miss Grant's lawsuit says that the abuse she suffered at the hands of Mr. McMahon and others has caused debilitating post-traumatic stress and thoughts of suicide, which is sad. It's very sad to do this to a human being, especially a human being who has been down and out. So it's not surprising that this person was already at a low, and then you find a way to get this person to an even lower position, which is, that's just crazy. When she was forced out of WWE, she obtained a job in the operations department of her apartment building. She lost that job, according to the lawsuit, because lingering trauma left her unable to leave her home for weeks at a time. Lawyers for Mr. McMahon could not be reached for comment on Thursday. Go figure. WWE's parent company, TKO Group, said in a statement, Mr. McMahon does not control TKO, nor does he oversee the day-to-day operations of WWE. While this matter predates our TKO executive team's tenure at the company, we take Ms. Grant's horrific allegations very seriously and are addressing this matter internally. I believe them. I believe TKO Group actually handles business the right way. Could there be some bad apples within that company? Absolutely. But I think there also are a bunch of good apples who actually do care about the people that they work with. Now, they may do some weird shit on the side outside of, what's going on at work, but I don't think that they do too much of shitting where they eat. The legal action raises new questions about the investigation conducted in 2022, which myself and Scoot, I believe, did have some reservations about that one, because I think we did talk about this before. And it was, even when that was going on, it's like you get your own team to do an investigation. That shit seems shady as fuck, but I digress. conducted in 2022 by a special committee of WWE's board of directors into Mr. McMahon's conduct. The investigators found that Mr. McMahon had spent 14.6 million between 2006 and 2022 on payments to women who had accused him of sexual misconduct, and that the payments should have been recorded as business expenses. Further investigation by the company found that Mr. McMahon had made additional payments totaling 5 million to two other women. The board's investigating committee never even bothered to interview Miss Grant, according to her lawsuit, which describes the investigation as a sham, which a lot of people have said. Jeff Speed, who led the investigation as a board member, described it as thorough and emphasized that Mr. McMahon had publicly left the company while it proceeded, which was uh, surprising timing with everything going on. That's when they had the thing when Stephanie stepped up, and Khan had came in and they partnered up and were like co-CEOs of like the company, where we thought Vince was going to be gone for good, but then he came back. So, and I guess, I remain confident in our investigation, which included outreach to Miss Grant and engagement with her lawyer, Mr. Speed said in an email sent Thursday by Simpson, Thatcher, and Bartlett, the law firm hired to represent the committee. Mr. Speed, who left WWE, ironic, in 2023, added that he recognized the horrific nature of the allegations in the lawsuit, but that he was not at liberty to comment on what was and was not learned during our investigation. See, and that's another eye-opening thing where you're like, that's an eye-raising thing. It's like, I don't know. It's like you did this, but you can't speak on it. So if it was something that's supposed to be cut and dry and open, then you'd be able to say what's up, and I'll kind of segue into this, or rather I'll sidebar this kind of with the Patrick Clark thing. When stuff was going on in him and he had his allegations, Triple H came out and said, hey, we did this investigation, we found nothing. Going back to this situation, Mr. Speed saying that he was part of the committee who did the investigation, saying that we can't speak on what did or what didn't happen. That's a clear indicator that something did happen, but you are not at liberty to speak on it because you do not want to incriminate yourself or Vince McMahon. That's literally what that is. Because if there was nothing found, then you would have easily been like, hey, we found nothing, nothing's here, bam. No, that means Vince, either you are covering up for Vince or there's some shit that you can't say and you ain't trying to get yourself in hot water, which is one of the reasons why you probably left in 2023. Just saying. But I continue on. Mr. McMahon temporarily resigned from the company during the investigation, though though he remained a stockholder with a controlling interest, according to the company's quarterly filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission in August of 2023. In another SEC filing, WWE disclosed that federal investigators had executed a search warrant and had subpoenaed Mr. McMahon. Federal regulatory and law enforcement agencies also demanded that the company hand over documents. No criminal charges were filed against Mr. McMahon, who denied any intentional wrongdoing in a statement last year. He agreed to reimburse the company for the cost of the investigation and return to lead WWE in early 2023, which we all scoffed at. We all hated it. Here's the thing with this. Any intentional wrongdoing. He denied any intentional wrongdoing. See, then that right there is key phrasing to me, because then you can easily say, yeah, this stuff was done, but we thought she wanted it, or, well, she didn't outright say this, or she not this. It says, yeah, this stuff happened, but we didn't intentionally do this. We assumed whatever. It's a way to talk your way out of a situation, because if nothing wrong was done, then you just would have said nothing wrong was done. So it's another way to talk yourself out of a situation, but whatever. Soon after his return, Mr. McMahon negotiated a deal to sell the company to Endeavor Group, which owns UFC. Mr. McMahon retained 28 million shares in the combined company, now called TKO Group, where he is also the executive chairman. So there's all that. So the thing is, if this whole thing is factual and everything is accurate, all the allegations and speculation is correct, and all the documents are true, and this stuff actually did happen, Vince, wow. I'm not going to disparage you at this time, because I'll wait for the stuff to come out, and then I'll give my full on unabashed, uninhibited opinions on the situation. But to Miss Grant, I'm sorry that if this is what happened, one, I'm sorry that you had to be in a situation where you lost both your parents unemployed and you were just down and out. That's just a horrible position to be in. But if this stuff is what happened to you, and I am just genuinely, wholly sorry and super apologetic to that, because that nobody should have to go through whatever the fuck this is, because it's just wrong. It's just wrong, especially from somebody who, you know, has a daughter, has granddaughters, is married, you know, you have women that you employ. This whole situation, if in fact it is true, and I have to keep saying that, I have to stress the fact that that it's an assumption, allegations, everything, until something is definitively said in court, or we see something that comes out as cut and dry. You know, all we have are documents that have been posted. Anything can be, you know, fabricated, anything can be made up, whatever the case is. So we kind of have to tread lightly with the wording of if this is in fact true or not. But I wanted to get this part out the way, so that way the informative stuff is there, so that way we're all informed, we all know what's going on as far as what's being put out there. I'm sure there's going to be more videos today that come out, so I'm sure more stuff will come out as well, as far as the information, probably more text messages, I'm sure. But for now, let's get the serious shit out the way, so then we can continue to have fun with shit, because those text messages, we are going to have a field day reading those, because wow, even if it's fake, even if the text messages are fake, it is still going to be fun to read. So with that said, whether you loved it, hate it, don't forget to rate it, thumbs up, thumbs down, leave all your comments, concerns, questions down below. If you were informed, to let me know you were informed. But until then, until you see this handsome face, hear this immaculate voice, I bid you all adieu. And until next time, you beautiful, beautiful, beautiful mother effers, tag the fucketh out.
Dollars make a way to make a change. Gotta be insane to make them same mistakes again. So I'm switching lane to lane.